Ladies and gentlemen, we are switching gears into yet another fantastic and very important conversation. We like to call this the African Case Study, lessons from the continent's top entrepreneurs. And it's so wonderful to say that these entrepreneurs are part of the Africa's Business Heroes family. Bringing them up, please give a wild ABH welcome to the CEO of Vuba Vuba, a 2023 ABH Top 10 Hero, driving impact in Rwanda's e-commerce and delivery space, Albert Munyabungigo. Oh, come on, it's Vuba Vuba! The founder of Chapter, Reshaping Digital Marketing Across Kenya, a serial entrepreneur with a passion for innovation, is none other than Tesh Imbabu. Lastly, we've got Yvette Ishimwe, the CEO of Iriba Tap and Drink, tackling sustainable water solutions in Rwanda, a 2021 ABH Top 10 Hero. Please welcome Yvette. And definitely going to navigate this conversation, none other than the extraordinary Bloomberg News Africa correspondent, who is also an expert on Africa's economy and entrepreneurial trends. Please welcome Ondiro Oganga. Ondiro, thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. How are we feeling? How are we doing? Are we enjoying the session so far? Give your neighbor a high five and tell them what a wonderful event.
What a wonderful event.
Well then, this session is to talk about the case study for African businesses. And just to lay context for you, Africa is a continent of so much potential. If we look at something like demographic dividend, we are called the youthful continent. 70% of our population under the age of 30. We have resources, we have land, and we also have natural resources like minerals. However, there are also challenges on the African continent. Some of these challenges include regulation. Some of these challenges include lack of financing, among others, including infrastructure. And that notwithstanding, businesses, African founders like the three amazing entrepreneurs that we have on stage are defying these odds. And that lays the basis for our conversation today. Let's start with you, Tesh. I have laid context for the challenges that we experience on the African continent, yet you people are still making it work. There is a Bible, or there is a set of rules that you play by. And differential diagnosis is really important. What works in Europe doesn't work in Africa. So in your experience in business, what are some of the strategies and principles that you've seen that actually make businesses work and propel them to success?
All right, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Tesh, co-founder and CEO at Chapter, where we help businesses leverage AI agents to help them with customer support and sales across social media platforms. So I think there's two main principles that are very important for entrepreneurs to think about. The first is the fact that Africa is super diverse. There's 54 different countries, so Africa is not one market, and that creates a lot of challenges, as you mentioned, around regulation, payments and all that. So it makes it very hard to scale across different markets. But I do think there is formulas to make it work. One that we deploy, for example, is appreciating that you need to have localized talent, people who understand the culture, understand the nuances of the market, understand the regulatory environment. So in our case, as we expand to different markets, we hire local talent. I think the other big principle to appreciate is the African paradox, which is really the fact that there's so many challenges, but at the same time, there's so much opportunity, because where there's challenge, there's opportunity, and I think that gives entrepreneurs an opportunity to innovate. I think a good case study would be thinking about how M-Pesa scaled across Kenya and now to different markets. If they went the traditional route of trying to build technology infrastructure, ATMs, which is very expensive, it would be very difficult, but they leveraged these young people to be M-Pesa agents, There's 300,000 of them who act as agents, and this is a model that has been replicated across the continent.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of leveraging the opportunities that you have and working with what you have, if this is something that you do in your company, and you're solving a very pertinent issue, water scarcity is a problem in Africa. 1 out of 3 people face water scarcity, and you've been able to build a business in this realm. How then, in your experience, can entrepreneurs drive lasting change, and how do you scale up these solutions?
Thank you so much. I think one of the best strategies that I've seen so far is really to localize your strategies. There is no one size fits all, and sometimes we try to copy the things that have been successful elsewhere. And as Tesh mentioned, Africa is a continent with 54 countries, different cultures, and so with those different dynamics, it's very important to strategize in ways that meet your local context. And another thing is really to make sure that we capitalize on cut costs. That's number one, because sometimes we want to do things, beautiful, fancy, scale too fast, and we forget to manage our costs. And with costs, that's when we're able to sustain our businesses. So if we can be able to really manage our costs appropriately, leverage on local talents, and really localize our strategies, make them make sense locally, with your local people, then it works.
Now, before I go to Albert, I want to throw a question to the audience. How many of us here are from Rwanda, by a show of hands? Okay, interesting. So if you live in Rwanda, one way or the other, you know Vuba Vuba. You've ordered something from Vuba Vuba. Yeah, a round of applause for him, a round of applause. So Albert, coming to you, your business is part and parcel of logistics. And more often than not, even country and outside of the country, particularly in Africa, supply chain is very, very fragmented. What kind of solutions have you found are working for you and helping you actually navigate that market?
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here again. And if you haven't used the service, I believe now, today and tomorrow is the day to try it out. Look, I think sometimes we look at it as if there's a need of magic, right? So logistics, the very moment you think about it as a simple, make it simple. So if someone is ordering either cross-border logistics or within a country, the very first thing they're looking at is having their goods delivered as soon as possible. So when you have that in mind, before you go to whatever data you need to analyze, if you have that as the back of your mind, it makes the conversation quite easier for yourself and the team as well. I remember back in the days, there's a time, how when we're doing deliveries, so we usually cut an area. We say we're not going to deliver for more than, say, 6-7 kilometers. But then when you sit back and look at the customer need, you're like, what do they need? So that was a policy set by myself, so I was very much wrong. Because the team came and challenged me, like, so what we're having now, because people have their favorite merchant and all, so they're tricking the address. And then when a driver gets to 6 kilometers, like, oh no, I'm actually to 15 kilometers, and I'm willing to pay the difference, right? So the very moment you make it simple and you speak the customer's language, and you reduce the process as much as you can, right? So logistics comes with infrastructures. I would say running this in Rwanda is a bit different from some other countries as well, because infrastructures in terms of roads and addressing systems, internet penetration, that's the sort of core basic of the logistics. And then comes in the processes as well. Cross-border, we've seen you're probably ordering something that is crossing a border from Rwanda to Uganda, and it fits probably past 8, 9 p.m. Sometimes you get blockers because most of the processes are still offline, right? So if we simplify this and automate as much as we can, I think that's a very good way to navigate through the hardship of logistics and especially cross-border and within the countries.
Simplify, automate. And in the lifeline of a business, challenges are going to come. Those of us in the audience who are old enough to remember, just recently we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and businesses, particularly those that had not adapted to a digital strategy, really either had to disrupt themselves or they had to shut down. Yvette, in the course of doing your business, when disruptions come, how do you stay resilient and adapt to the changing times and trends?
Working together as a team, brainstorm. I think not just founders, but together with our colleagues, we can make magic happen. We understand our model, we understand our customers, and when you know that and you have that positive mindset that this is going to work, you definitely come up with a solution. And secondly, really to simple things. Sometimes you will find that very impactful businesses, very successful businesses are very simple models, and sometimes we complicate ourselves trying to think gigantic, complex tech things, and that doesn't necessarily work all the time. So when you start simply, we can make it work. So that's what we do.
Tesh, I see you laughing. Does this point resonate in Touch Enough?
Yeah, it's true. I think the purpose of business is, or should be simple. To make a profit and make the impact that you'd like.
Yeah.
Anything outside that is...
But Tosh, when you're going back to the market and you're trying to raise revenue, VCs want to know how many consumers do you have, how much revenue, what markets are you in, how do you intend to scale up? You are a good storyteller, and we've seen you in a certain podcast, and you are giving really, really raw and honest experiences of being an entrepreneur. When all is said and done, when we take away the games, the gimmicks, and the shenanigans, what do entrepreneurs actually need?
I think entrepreneurs need a problem worth solving. I think that's the most important thing. They need to have a healthy attachment to a problem that they really, really want to solve. And unfortunately, sometimes you might think that it's a problem. It's not a real problem. So it's that process of figuring out, is this a true problem, experimentation, then even if it's a true problem, is there a way to build a business out of it? Because sometimes there are problems and you'll try to build a business out of it and it just doesn't work because of various reasons. So I think that's what I mean by a healthy relationship with a problem that's worth solving. If you can figure that out, you can build a very large business.
Now, before we go to Albert, I want to throw this to the audience. This should be a very interactive session because these entrepreneurs create solutions that solve your problems. Tesh has spoken about entrepreneurs need problems. We will be having a QR code coming up on the screen shortly. You can scan it. We want to hear what your thoughts are, and we'll go through this before we close the session. What problems in your daily life, in your experience, in your work, have you encountered that you think we need entrepreneurial solutions to? Let me come to you, Albert. How then do you scale a business? He's spoken about you see a problem, you partner locally, and now things look like they're working. Vuba Vuba has captured the Rwandan market. It's doing really well. How do we take it to Uganda? How do we take it to Kenya?
I think after you've started a business, that's where most of the times the hard part comes in, right? Scalability, and making a very fast customer is key to it all, right? So I'll look at it in two ways, right? Getting the right team, the right partnerships, build the right team. That's the very fundamental of scalability. Because however much you believe in your business, if you don't have a right team, I mean, it's scalability it will be probably in the next generation. And then number two is how you acquire, understanding your metrics of the cost of acquiring your first customer. By first customer, I mean first users. In terms of if you're in manufacturing, if you're in service industry, the very first, say, bunch of customers you're going to acquire, how you serve them is going to define how far you will go. Because in our market, at least from experience, the word of mouth really works well. If you focus a lot on your processes and make sure that you're not, over-promising and under-delivering, all these customers are actually going to advocate, at least because Africa is now on a level where we really understand that consuming African solutions is a game changer. So when we do that, if you're in manufacturing and all, people understand that consuming our product is really key, and people will go ahead and advocate for what you do. Speaking of scaling, we've actually, a week ago, we've scaled to Uganda, adding on the 4 cities of Rwanda we operate. And, on all different expansions we've had, word of mouth, defining your processes, don't overpromise, be realistic with your customers. If there's an issue, if you're not going to meet what you've promised, be proactive. And people do understand because most of the people have been there.
You raise very important points. You'd rather have 5 people that love the business other than 25 who are lukewarm, because the 5 now become your brand ambassadors. Absolutely. Now, I want us to turn our attention to the wall. This is part of our segment where it's called Audience Speaks. I want you to scan the QR code because our entrepreneurs also need to hear from you just the way you've heard from them. Let us know what your thoughts, what your comments are. Yvette has spoken about partnering locally, driving local solutions. Tesh has spoken about the fact that entrepreneurs need problems so they can create solutions for them. And Albert has spoken about the need to ensure that you serve your niche and your demographic really well so they become your brand ambassadors. Drop your comments, drop your thoughts, drop your questions there, and we'll be looking at them shortly. As we almost come to a close, I want to find out from you, Yvette, in the course of you being in this experience and working, what has stood out for you in interacting with these entrepreneurs? What are some of the key lessons or key highlights that you've drawn from the different entrepreneurs through the Africa Business Heroes Summit that come from different African countries?
I think something that has stood out for me from my experience is I have learned that I am so important. My mental health, my well-being is so important as an entrepreneur as much as my business is. And with that in mind, I do it my way, and I make sure that the business is not going to consume me. With that, you bring in your values, you bring in your beliefs, you bring in your vision, and you're able to inspire others. And with that, you're not trying to copy someone. You're being original. And when you're original, the business also stands out in its uniqueness and in its capacity. Secondly is with that doing it on your pace, something that I learned, for example, we scaled our business to DRC, to Central African Republic, and I realized that it's not always so nice to scale too fast. When you do it on your pace, you're able to get all those lessons and adapt accordingly.
Great. Now, I can see a couple of questions coming on the screen, and we'll just take a couple of them. How do you go to the market in Rwanda? How do you sell to the people in Rwanda? Albert, you want to take that? 30 seconds?
Yes. So go to market, I think you first start with a very small circle, people to give you real feedbacks. If you're in product or service industry, sometimes we make a mistake to actually talk to our family members and be like, because most of the times they won't give you real feedback. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's good, go ahead with it. But then get a niche of who is your target customer, make a focus group, and then I'm sure these guys will give you proper feedbacks. And even if they don't give you right feedbacks, still go for it. It's very rare that the first product or the first service is going to win, but you keep improving as you go to the market. But markets are very responsive in terms of adopting real services and products that do work.
Tesh, let me throw this to you. Someone asks, do you think all African solutions need AI? 30 seconds.
A great question. I don't think so. I think, however, I think technology is an enabler for any business, so it can make your business 10x better if you leverage it.
Tesh, we still stay with you. What's Tesh's experience from exiting a business and starting a new one?
My experience is that you need to learn as much as possible and iterate. For example, if you change your business one time every week, you have 56 chances in a year to change your business. But if you do it every day, you have 365 chances to change your business. So I think same should apply in how you build businesses as entrepreneurs.
Yvette, wrap up this for us. How do you ensure that your business is attractive to investors?
By giving it a unique selling point, by making integrity a core principle to how you do things, and by managing money very well, that you will be able to give back the returns they expect.
We only have a minute left. I want to split it between all the three of you very briefly, 15 seconds each. In terms of regulation, what kind of policy environment do you need? Let's start with you, Albert.
So we need policymakers to actually understand this type of business because it's quite new. E-commerces, fintech and all, most of the places is really still new, so we need them to actually research and get to understand so they have policies that are in favor for us.
Tesh, let me ask you this. Having started a business in a different country, shut down your business and had to go back to the drawing board, what was the greatest lesson from that?
Resilience is everything.
Say that again?
Resilience is everything.
And Yvette, at the end of the day, when you go back home and it's time to go to bed, what makes you want to wake up the next day and do what you do again?
Seeing growth, seeing people's lives impacted by my work is what excites me to wake up the next day to do more.
Ladies and gentlemen, Yvette, Tesh, and Albert, a round of applause for them. When Anita was coming on stage, she promised we are going to keep it short and sweet, and that we did. Thank you very much.